Pasadena will not be seen tonight, but will return in 2 weeks with all new episodes. Now, at the request of the White House, a special edition of America's Most Wanted.
It's Friday, October 12th, 2001. To date, your tips have led to the capture of 683 fugitives. Tonight, on a special edition of America's Most Wanted, America Fights Back. It's a war against terror, and you're on the front lines. In the first week of the investigation, we took you to ground zero.
This is the danger these crews are working under.
Let's get this guy.
Absolutely. We'll hunt him down like the dog he is.
Then you joined the manhunt.
Move back, move back, move back!
And you helped us take down our first suspected terrorist.
I thought of the 6,000 people who died, and I knew I had to call.
This week,
now is the time to draw the line in the sand against the evil ones.
the FBI puts out its list of the world's most wanted terrorists. Tonight, we're working with the White House to launch you on the most important manhunt of our lifetime.
We will shine the light of justice on them.
These are the faces of the men who have waged war on America for 15 years. It's time to draw the line, and the battle starts right here, right now, on America's Most Wanted, where America fights back. And now, from the White House, John Walsh.
Good evening. Wednesday, President Bush, along with the FBI, released a new Most Wanted list, a list of the 22 most wanted men in the world. He asked for our help to track them down. We're very proud to do that, and that's why we're here at the White House now. These terrorists are behind many of the most heinous crimes committed against humanity over the past 20 years. The first three we're going to look at tonight took part in a deadly hijacking that happened more than 15 years ago, and who knows what they've been involved with since then. It's time we hunt them down and bring them to justice at last.
The face of terror takes many forms. Before bin Laden, there was Mugniya, once and maybe still the most dangerous man in the world. The world was rocked into realizing how dangerous he was on June 18, 1985. Hijackers had taken over a TWA jet bound from Athens to Rome. Most of the 151 passengers on board were Americans, including Robert Steetham, a young Navy diver. On the second day of the hijacking, the terrorists viciously stabbed Steetham to death and dumped his body out of the plane. The hijackers were members of the Islamic radical group Hezbollah. After 17 days, they finally released all passengers, blew up the plane on a Beirut runway, and escaped. Investigators identified two of the men involved in the hijacking of Flight 847 as Hassan Izaldin and Ali Atwa. But the FBI says the brains behind the operation was Imad Fayez Mogniya.
Most people who know him and know Osama bin Laden in the Arab world intelligence industry know that he is much more clever, much more capable, and much more dangerous, if you will, as a leading terrorist than Osama bin Laden. He is very, very clever and very, very dangerous.
FBI and CIA sources say Mugniya's fingerprints are all over some of the most outrageous terrorist attacks ever, including the 1983 bombing of the Marine barracks in Beirut that killed 241 servicemen. They say he was behind the 1984 kidnapping of William Buckley, the CIA station chief in Beirut. Buckley's captors released videotapes of him to show he was well, but 2 years later, his body showed up on a Beirut roadside. When George Bush Sr. became president, he put a $2 million bounty on Mugniya's head.
Bush had a personal feeling of friendship with Buckley, one. The second thing was that I think as the head of the CIA, he wanted to send a message that they weren't going to tolerate anybody assassinating a station chief.
That got Mugniya's attention. He went into hiding, and according to intelligence reports, he underwent plastic surgery to change his face.
He has the capability to go into hiding in the south of Lebanon and places in West Beirut, and also the capability to go into Iran itself, which was one of their major financial, operational type supporters for Hezbollah.
But he never changed his ways. If anything, he became even more dangerous. It seemed wherever there was terror, there was Mognia. In 1992, 28 people died in Argentina when, according to the FBI, Mognia and his cohorts blew up the Israeli embassy. Mognia has even been linked to terrorism against Russia. He reportedly taught his dirty tricks to the rebels fighting the Russian army in Chechnya. We once came close to catching this madman. U.S. intelligence officers got wind of his travel plans and for once got a jump on the elusive demon. They rushed to Saudi Arabia, where Mognia was about to take off for Beirut.
He was boarding a plane. The plane landed in Jeddah. The American knew exactly, that he's in the plane, where he's sitting in the plane. They asked the Saudi to hold the plane. The Saudi refused to turn down the American request, and that was the end of the story.
So now let's write another ending. If you have any information that can help authorities take down this psycho, please don't be afraid to call our hotline at 1-800-CRIME-TV. And remember, you can remain anonymous.
Right now we're being joined by Fox News correspondent Jennifer Griffin, who's in the West Bank, and who spent some time looking into the twisted history of Ahmad Mognia. Jennifer, what can you tell us about Mognia's whereabouts?
He left Lebanon in the 1980s when the last Western hostages were released. He took asylum in Iran. As you know, Iran is one of the principal backers of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Ahmad Mognia was reportedly last seen in Abu Dhabi about a year ago before the bombing of the USS Cole. Israeli analysts here say that he first started meeting with al-Qaeda operatives in the Gulf states in 1998. The problem is it's very difficult to know when or where Mognia meets with these operatives because very few people know what he looks like.
Mognia is being mentioned as possibly being involved in the September 11th attacks. What's his connection with bin Laden?
He's basically the chief of al-Qaeda's overseas operations. He cut his teeth in Beirut in the 80s, where he was in charge of suicide bombings and kidnapping Westerners. He basically has more operational experience than even bin Laden.
Thanks a lot, Jennifer, and please stay safe. Now remember, we're also looking for two other terrorists who were involved in that hijacking. They're Hassan Izzaldin and Ali Atwa. Both men are believed to be in Lebanon. Back in the mid-'80s, when Mognia and his accomplices hijacked TWA 847, terrorism seemed like a foreign and distant problem, something that happened somewhere else. But all that changed in '93, when the World Trade Center first came under attack. That's when our next group of terrorists showed up on the FBI's radar screen.
February 26, 1993, the day Middle Eastern terrorism hit home. The target, New York's World Trade Center. And the terrorists, Islamic militants, living and plotting right under our noses.
This wasn't a large plot in terms of hundreds of people involved. In that sense, it was very sophisticated in that it was very tightly controlled. They were all here legally. There was nothing to draw attention to them, nothing at all. Even in hindsight, the value of hindsight, there really wasn't much of anything that we could look at and say, we can learn from this, or this will bring them to our attention the next time around.
The easily overlooked gang set up shop in Jersey City, New Jersey. Their leader, terrorist mastermind Ramzi Youssef. Under his direction, an Iraqi terrorist named Abdul Yassin made the bomb by mixing 1,500 pounds of a fertilizer-based explosive.
Some would say it was a rather crude mix. It was an extraordinarily effective mix, a high-order explosive.
The job of delivering the bomb fell to Yassin's co-conspirator, Mohammed Salameh.
The driver, Mohammed Salameh, actually didn't know how to drive till a few weeks before this, and he had taken some driving lessons. It's kind of frightening. He'd had 2 or 3 accidents because he was such a poor driver, and yet you think about driving this van full of very, very unstable high-order explosive into the city. If he'd had a slight accident, the whole thing could have gone off.
Salome managed to drive the rented truck filled with the volatile chemicals into the World Trade Center's underground parking lot. Then he lit the fuse.
Get in the ambulance!
The blast made a crater 150 feet wide and 5 floors deep. 6 people were killed and 1,000 injured. Damages totaled $500 million. As bad as it was, the terrorists failed to achieve their evil goal.
It was a tremendous blast. It severely weakened and destroyed the parking areas and so forth, but the mass casualties and the toppling of the towers did not happen.
At the bomb site, the FBI quickly hit pay dirt. Investigators discovered a fragment of the rented truck. It contained an identification number traced to a rental agency in New Jersey.
Mohammed Salama was the first individual arrested in that bombing plot. He was arrested when he went back to the Ryder rental agency to pick up the deposit on the van that he had rented to carry the bomb. It was incredibly stupid.
After an international manhunt, the ringleader, Ramzi Youssef, was captured in Pakistan and brought back to the U.S. Like Salome, he's now in prison. But Abdul Yassin is still on the run. Here's where it really hit home. Investigators learned Yassin is from here. He was born in Bloomington, Indiana. His family moved back to Iraq when he was a young child. Let's bring Abdul Yassin back home to face American justice. Here are some things we know about him. He lived in Jersey City, New Jersey in 1992. He takes medicine for epilepsy, and he may have a chemical burn on his right thigh. If you know anything about where Abdul Yassin might be hiding, please do the right thing and call 1-800-CRIME-TV tonight.
Now, let me tell you something. I was in New York just yesterday, and it's unbelievable. The ruins from the World Trade Towers are still smoldering. Brave crews are working around the clock, pulling out body parts. Many victims were totally vaporized in the collapse, and nothing of them will ever be found. They say the average age of the victims in the towers was only 39 years old. As many as 10,000 widows and orphans were created as a result of this tragedy. Men and women and children whose lives are changed forever. That's why we've got to get these cowards. That's why we've got to stop terrorism, and we can't give up no matter what. Now stay with us. We'll be right back with more from the White House.
Coming up next, it's the most important terrorism investigation on foreign soil, the one that told us the most about the terrorist network. Now you can be a part of the investigation and help bring the terrorists to justice. And later,
Freedom is an anathema to the terrorist, and I'm not going to give my freedom up so that he succeeds.
One horrible act involved more than half of the names on the world's most wanted terrorist list, including the name of the person the FBI believes was the mastermind, a real coward named Osama bin Laden. Our Tom Morris has the story.
It remains one of the worst terrorist attacks we've ever seen. On August 7th, 1998, almost simultaneously, 2 U.S. embassies, one in Kenya, the other in Tanzania, were reduced to rubble. It was obviously the work of terrorists, and America was caught in the crosshairs. 223 innocent people were dead, 12 of them were American. The case was given to the FBI field office in New York City and Louis Shaliro. 2 teams of agents headed by Lou Shaliro were immediately dispatched to the bomb sites in East Africa.
The local authorities in Kenya and Tanzania combed both crime scenes very, very meticulously and were able to detect the nature of the explosives and, more importantly, uncover the vehicles that were used to enclose the explosive devices.
From day one, Shaliro's men knew Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda were the prime suspects.
This group has not been shy when it comes to committing just horrendous events against the United States.
On June 16, 1999, a federal judge unsealed this indictment. Now the job was to track the terrorists down.
From there, it was really agents on the ground, both the agents and our foreign law enforcement counterparts, that tracked these people through a variety of records, through a variety of electronic communications that they had, and it became a very, very detailed international investigation in order to locate and apprehend them.
Shaliro's men started tracking them down one by one. First, Muhammad al-Awali, who, according to the indictment, jumped out of a truck at the embassy in Nairobi armed with a gun and lobbed grenades at security guards before fleeing. Moments later, his truck bomb went off. Believe it or not, the FBI found some of these terrorists right here in the United States. Again and again, the name Wadid El-Haj has popped up in the indictment. He's a Lebanese immigrant who worked at this service station and lived in this apartment in Texas. One time, he was Osama bin Laden's secretary. Earlier this year in New York, a federal court found El-Haj and 3 co-conspirators guilty of the embassy bombings.
How gratifying was the conviction of the 4 terrorists you were able to bring back to the United States?
There certainly is a great deal of satisfaction in being able to apprehend a fugitive, particularly the fugitives that are being talked about here tonight, that are very significant.
But there are 13 more men who have not been apprehended. 13 of the FBI's 22 most wanted terrorists. The plot, as always, begins at the top with Osama bin Laden, his military expert Mohammed Atef, and Ayman al-Zawahiri, the brains behind the operation. But the others working behind the scenes do the legwork.
Certainly a great deal of logistical support was necessary to carry out the simultaneous bombings of the embassies in Dar es Salaam and in Nairobi. The ability to obtain the explosives, to put the explosives in vehicles, and to simultaneously hit both embassies did require a fair amount of coordination.
All these men had a role. Kenyans Fahid Misalam and Sheikh Swedan allegedly bought the trucks, purchased oxygen tanks, truck batteries, and the detonators used in the bombings. Mustafa Mohammed Fadil, an Egyptian, prepared the TNT used in Tanzania. As Shaliro's crew dug into the plot, they discovered another Egyptian, Saif al-Adel, a man who worked directly under Mohammed Atef. Al-Adel is a military expert who's trained al-Qaeda soldiers in Afghanistan. The U.S. has been hunting him because he also trained Somali fighters who in 1993 ambushed and killed U.S. soldiers. Libyan Anas al-Libi is described as one of bin Laden's most trusted aides and al-Qaeda's computer whiz. A full 4 years before the bombings, it's been reported that al-Libi traveled to Africa and, posing as a tourist, took pictures of both embassies. Those pictures allegedly helped bin Laden and his al-Qaeda operatives execute the bombings. After the bombs went off, agents raided al-Libi's home in England and found a manual with instructions on how to blow up buildings. But al-Libi was gone. Anas al-Libi appears clean-cut and is quiet. People familiar with him say he is constantly on the computer, but keeps a low profile. As one of bin Laden's close associates, he is a very important and dangerous man. And here are the other members of the FBI's most wanted terrorists charged with these bombings. Fazul Muhammad, Abdullah, Ahmed Ali, Ahmed Gailani, and Muhsin Atwa, an Egyptian man we've profiled numerous times. Those are the top fugitives in the case, and it would still mean a lot to Lou Shaliro to get just one of them off the streets tonight.
I think certainly the fact that I left the FBI before Osama bin Laden had been apprehended is a frustration. There were a great many fugitives in this case that we would like to have gotten prior to now. This group, al-Qaeda, will be eliminated.
There's a reward of up to $5 million on these fugitives. If you know anything about these men, it's your duty as an American to call 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Now, in the global war on terrorism, the U.S. has a very unique weapon in its arsenal. It's called the Rewards for Justice program. Now, you might have heard about it this week.
One of the most powerful tools we have for tracking down terrorists abroad is the State Department's Rewards for Justice program. It gives us millions of additional pairs of eyes and ears to be on the lookout. It puts potential informants in every place a terrorist might try to operate or to hide. And it works.
That was the press conference where the U.S. named the 22 most wanted terrorists in the world. These are dangerous, dangerous guys. Now, this program works, and it works in some kind of conventional ways and some kind of unique ways. For example, it's a lot like America's Most Wanted. It looks for tips for terrorists around the world. It's a lot like Crime Stoppers. It uses posters distributed through U.S. embassies in the Middle East. Now, here's a guy we all know, Osama bin Laden. This is the conventional style. Now, there are some other unique parts of this program that I think are fascinating. Now, here's a lottery-like ticket. We all know what these are. You scratch this off, but you don't get money. You get pictures of wanted terrorists, but you get information on how to collect a reward and where to give your tip. Now, here's what looks like a $50 bill. They drop these around on the ground or leave them in boxes, and people are real curious. So you pick it up and you open it up, and guess what? Pictures of wanted terrorists. Also, it tells you about the terrorists, how to collect a reward, and where to give your tip. And here's the most unique part of the program, I think. Here's matchbook covers. 2 matchbook covers that caught 2 guys. This first guy, Ramzi Youssef. He was the mastermind of the 1993 World Trade Center bombings. He went on the run, and guess what? He was caught in Pakistan because of this matchbook cover, and a reward was given. Here's another guy. We profiled this guy in America's Most Wanted, Mir Amal Khanzi. This coward came to the U.S., went to the CIA headquarters in Northern Virginia, and killed a bunch of innocent people and went on the run. He was also caught in Pakistan through a tip, and a reward was given. And they offer substantial rewards. 22 people have collected over $8 million in rewards. And those 22 most wanted terrorists, some of the rewards for those guys are up to $5 million per guy. Now, we know the program works, and if you want to get involved, you can donate money to the program and help catch these cowards. You can visit our website, rewardfund.org. You can donate your money, it goes right into the program and helps law enforcement hunt down these cowards. And if you recognize any of the guys we profiled on the program tonight, please have the courage to make that call. Remember, you can remain anonymous. We don't trace the calls. We don't tap the phones. Nobody's going to come to your house. You can just give us that tip. We'll turn it over to law enforcement, and we'll hunt these cowards down like the dogs that they are. Now, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Coming up next, the case the FBI director was obsessed with and the one man he could never catch.
Now, we continue our look at the FBI's 22 most wanted terrorists with our next 4 fugitives, cowards who hit their target under the cover of night.
A 5,000-pound bomb was unimaginable until June 25, 1996. That night, an explosion ripped apart the 8-story Khobar Towers, an American military complex in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. A tanker truck carrying a deadly combination of explosives and gasoline had pulled up by the tower's perimeter fence. It was just 35 yards away from the building when it detonated. The blast killed 19 American airmen and 300 were injured. Agents quickly pieced together what happened that night, including some true heroism. 2 guards on the roof spotted a suspicious truck. When 2 men left the tanker in another car, the guards evacuated the building, saving hundreds of lives before the truck blew up.
We will pursue this matter, as I've said to you before, to whatever end, to whatever consequence, to whatever logical and just conclusion.
For former FBI Director Louis Freeh, the case became something of an obsession. He became directly involved in the investigation, traveling to Saudi Arabia several times.
I'm not a diplomat, I'm not a politician, I'm a policeman, and that's the way I conducted this case.
Several radical groups eagerly took credit for the fatal blast, but investigators were eventually led to the Saudi Arabian branch of Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed Islamic militant group. On June 21st of this year, almost 5 years to the day after the attack, indictments were handed down. It happened on Louis Freeh's last day as FBI director. The 46-count indictment charges 14 men with murder, mass destruction, and violence. Many of them are already in custody. But 4 remain fugitives. Among them is Abdel Karim Hussein Mohammed El Nasser. He's believed to be the leader of the Saudi Hezbollah. The second fugitive in this case is Ahmad Ibrahim Al-Mughassil. Agents say he called the shots, helped build a bomb, and drove the fuel truck to the scene of the crime. Third is Ali Syed Ben Ali El-Lori. He was a passenger in the bomb truck and helped plan the attack. And finally, Ibrahim Salah Mohammed El-Yaqub. He helped recruit young men to join the Islamic militant group.
History has shown that these people do not go off and retire after conducting a terrorist attack. They remain with their cause, they remain dedicated to that cause, and if we don't find these people and apprehend these people and successfully prosecute these people, there is concern within the law enforcement community, in particular within the FBI, that we very well may hear from them again.
For the first time since the September 11th attacks, Mike Rowlands, the head of the FBI's International Terrorism Section, is speaking out. He says the terrorist networks we're hunting down are very organized and dedicated to their evil mission.
There are any number of people around the world, radical in their views, in their beliefs, and in their actions, who have listened to the voices of evil and have been willing to sacrifice themselves and many, many innocent people in furtherance of that cause.
Although many of the terrorists we're after are probably overseas, Rowlands believes Americans can still play a very active role in the investigation.
Americans travel overseas, Americans study overseas, Americans have relatives overseas. Many thousands, if not millions, of Americans conduct business overseas. We are hopeful that these photographs will have been viewed and that any individual who believes they may have seen some of these suspects or perhaps have knowledge of their whereabouts will then step forward.
That's why we need you. Take one more good look at these 4 fugitives. You may have seen them, heard their name, or noticed something unusual. Abdel Karim El Nasser is the leader of the Saudi Hezbollah. Ahmad El-Mughassil is believed to have planned and executed the Khobar Towers bombing. Ali El-Lori is a small man, just 5'2" and 130 pounds. He has a mole on his face. He's an active recruiter in the Saudi Hezbollah. And Ibrahim El-Yaqub is also wanted for helping carry out the fatal bombing in Saudi Arabia. There's a reward of up to $5 million. That's right, $5 million for information on these suspected terrorists. You can remain anonymous. If you can help, call now at 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Coming up next, 2 of the most wanted terrorists aren't on the FBI's new list. When we come back, the most wanted men from America.
The war on terrorism isn't just going to be fought overseas. There are terrorists in our own country we need to hunt down as well. We've been on the hunt for America's 2 most wanted homegrown terrorists, Clayton Lee Wagner and Eric Rudolph. Wagner's the latest addition to the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Wagner broke out of an Illinois jail and has vowed to kill as many abortion providers as he can. These words are from a diatribe he posted on the internet.
I consider this a war, and in war, there are few rules. It doesn't matter to me if you're a nurse, receptionist, bookkeeper, or janitor. If you work for the murderous abortionist, I'm going to kill you.
What makes him extremely dangerous is he has made these threats, and he is always able to procure the means to carry out these threats, being firearms.
We most recently spotted Wagner at a Target store in Minneapolis, but he could be anywhere tonight, so keep your eyes open. Eric Rudolph is also on the FBI's top 10 list. Agents say Rudolph bombed several abortion clinics, killing 1 police officer. Police have been tracking Rudolph through the Smoky Mountains for years.
All the evidence that we have
and all the information and intelligence indicates that 1, he's alive, 2, he's alone, and 3, he's here.
But they haven't been able to catch him. If you've seen Eric Rudolph or Clayton Lee Wagner, please call 1-800-CRIME-TV right now. It's time to end their reign of terror.
The story behind the next terrorist on our list offers an example of how widespread the terrorist network really is. Our Ed Miller reports on the frightening inroads some terrorists are making in places as far away as the Philippines and Indonesia.
Multiple simultaneous hijackings. It's the kind of attack that caused such awful devastation on September 11th. But it's not a new idea for terrorists. 7 years ago, a group of radicals was plotting to blow up 11 U.S. jumbo jets. The plan called for bombs to detonate in all of the planes at approximately the same moment as they traveled over the Pacific Ocean, potentially killing thousands.
It was certainly clear that the intent of these 11 bombing attacks was to kill a significant number of Americans.
The plot had its origins in an unlikely faraway place, the Philippines. The terrorists were a bloodthirsty mix of Filipinos and radical Middle Easterners, all bent on killing Americans for supporting Israel. Manila police stopped the plot before it happened, but not before one deadly act. On December 11, 1994, in a sort of rehearsal for the plot, terrorists exploded a bomb in midair on Philippine Airlines Flight 434 with 293 passengers and crew on board. Miraculously, the pilot managed to land the damaged 747 jet.
The bombing was significant because while one person died and a number of people were injured, it was a precursor to the World Trade Center bomb.
One of the masterminds behind this horrible plot was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. He worked closely with a Philippine-based group called Abu Sayyaf, an extremist Islamic group.
While small, they're very violent and they are very determined and well-funded. You have to understand that terrorism is only effective with funding.
The terror tactics of Abu Sayyaf include kidnapping Westerners like Martin and Gracia Burnham. Just this past May, these Kansas missionaries were abducted from a Philippine resort. While a huge ransom has been demanded, their family holds out hope that the couple is still alive and together.
I think it would have been very hard if one was taken and the other one was left, and now they can be together and support each other.
Law enforcement believe the Abu Sayyaf group used the money from kidnapping people like the Burnhams to buy weapons and powerboats like these. In essence, experts believe they're trying to create their own fleet of terrorist pirates. One of their goals is to take over part of the Philippines and set up their own fundamentalist Islamic State, like the Taliban in Afghanistan.
Certain sections of the Philippines, the southern Philippine area that the Abu Sayyaf controls and is able to provide safe haven. There's been some indications that bin Laden himself has been to the southern Philippines under the protection of the Abu Sayyaf.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is also said to enjoy the protection of this rogue Asian gang. He's never been caught.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed has been part of the effort to punish the United States, the Great Satan as it is described, for its active role in what they consider to be their holy lands within the Arabian Peninsula, the Persian Gulf, and the Middle East in general.
Tonight, you can help authorities bring in the man who led a plot to blow U.S. airliners right out of the sky. Khalid Mohammed is only 5'4". He's originally from Kuwait, but could be hiding in the Middle Eastern nation of Qatar. As you can see, he changes his appearance from time to time. If you know anything about where he may be hiding, don't be afraid to call us at 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Coming up.
What you do and what you say and the information you provide and the reward that is being extended can work again, like it has in the past on this very program.
Earlier today, I sat down with the #1 law enforcement officer in the country, Attorney General John Ashcroft. I know you sat down with the different intelligence agencies and the FBI. How did you come up with these 22?
Well, obviously these are individuals that have been involved in very serious offenses against the United States. There are times when these individuals may have acted independently. There are times that they have acted in concert. All of them share the common characteristic of seeking to literally terrorize with the kind of vicious assaults on the United States, its assets, its properties, and its citizens, not only around the world, but here in the United States. They all are individuals who must be apprehended.
We had the enemy amongst us. We didn't know they were here. We didn't know who they were. Now we're going to show their faces. We're going to tell what they did. We're going to give the American public an idea of how they operate. So now when an American citizen suspects that he knows a terrorist or he thinks or sees unusual behavior, what should the average citizen do?
Well, we're very eager to enlist the aid of the average citizen. And frankly, following these attacks, we've opened a special website for information. We've gotten over 200,000 suggestions and leads. Obviously, most of them have not been extremely helpful, but a number of them are valuable. There are telephone numbers that people can call here in the United States, telephone numbers that are available internationally for people to call who can assist us in apprehending, bringing to justice, convicting, and punishing these terrorists who have murdered American citizens and citizens of other countries. So we have these welcome places that we expect. We expect the citizens of the world who believe in civilization, who are against the savagery of terrorism. They can contact us, and if they do contact us with the kind of relevant information that we need, it could be financially very valuable to them.
When someone gives that tip and they want to remain anonymous, for example, how do you pay that $5 million reward?
Well, we've had a number of individuals apprehended. The State Department is in charge of making those arrangements, and because it's a State Department program in the rewards. We believe that by offering the rewards, making those rewards known around the world, which this show has done previously, from Pakistan to Guatemala, from Ecuador to the backside of the world, we've actually seen apprehensions as a result of what you've done. And that's what we'd like to have happen here. We're going beyond governments. We're going into the hearts and minds of individuals, and we're saying that these terrorist networks, which are frequently hard to penetrate because of the loyalties that are expressed in these settings, they are susceptible sometimes to this kind of offer of reward. And your willingness to profile these outlaws against civilization, these murderers of Americans, American interests, and many others. You know, nations from Argentina to Zimbabwe, from A to Z, had population killed in the World Trade Center towers and the Pentagon tragedy and the plane in Pennsylvania. These were assaults against civilization. And what you do and what you say and the information you provide and the reward that is being extended can work again like it has in the past on this very program.
Do you have the resources to go through those tips in a timely manner, or are you asking Congress for more resources?
Well, I think we're doing a pretty good job, but it's clear to me that we've sort of had a change in mission. We've always in the FBI and in law enforcement generally, nationally, we've been focused on prosecution. After an event, we seek those who committed the crime, and we will do that. But we've got to be involved in prevention as well. And that prevention strategy is rather a shift in the way American law enforcement has previously worked. But when you have the potential calamity of thousands of people dying, you don't have the luxury of saying, well, we'll process this, and we hope that the evidence which we eventually process will stand up in court. We've got to quickly analyze the evidence instead of being court-oriented with it, be interruption-oriented, being prevention-oriented with it, and that's causing us to need additional resources.
Do you feel, and that's my personal opinion, that if we eliminate or get Osama bin Laden into custody, we take the wind out of the sails of Al-Qaeda and the Taliban?
I don't believe that simply eliminating Osama bin Laden is what we're trying to do. It won't there are too many people standing as lieutenants of his, ready to leap into his shoes and direct a kind of operation that he's already been involved with. We need not just to eliminate the capacity of Osama bin Laden, but we need to eliminate and do away with the network. The infrastructure of terrorism should be our target, the Al-Qaeda network as well as Osama bin Laden and those others who perpetrate terrorist acts around the world and those who support and harbor those who perpetrate terrorist acts.
So it's a long haul. It's a global war. The American people have to be patient, don't they?
I think it will be a long battle, but the President has said that we are fighting this battle not just for ourselves, but we're fighting it for future generations, and not just for Americans, but for people around the world. That civilization and terrorism don't coexist in any sense. That if we're going to have order, the rule of law, we can't have it interrupted and constantly disrupted by those who simply set all that aside for their own murderous objectives.
America has to conduct business as usual, isn't it? We can't be held hostage by fear.
That's exactly what the terrorist wants. The terrorist wants us to abandon our way of life. The terrorist wants to impose his way of life. Freedom is an anathema to the terrorist, and I'm not going to give my freedom up so that he succeeds.
Well, our viewers have solved some unsolvable cases. We've caught people that law enforcement thought were uncatchable. We've caught people all over the world.
Do it again.
We're proud to be in this battle with you. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's the fastest growing crime in America. Internet prowlers steal your name, your vital statistics, and then they own your identity. But now you can fight back and protect your good name. It's John Walsh's Street Smart, an identity theft protection system that alerts you whenever anyone, anywhere in the country, tries to use your name. Check out the program for 30 days. If you're not convinced this is the best way to protect yourself from identity theft, return it and you won't be charged a cent. To order, call 1-877-AMW-GEAR or find us on the web at amw.com. Order today, and for just $5 a month, you can be street smart.
Now, no one said this job would be easy, but don't fool yourself. We can catch these guys, and I believe we will. Why? Because we've done it before. A while back, we did the story of a terrorist car bombing right here in Washington, D.C. A former Chilean ambassador and one of his business partners were murdered. The suspect was on the run for 18 years. No one knew where he was. Everyone believed he was long gone, probably hiding in another country or maybe dead. Well, guess where we found this bomber? In a flower shop in Florida.